Okay, so how is this whole process funded? Well, there's something called the cycle of funding. And just to reiterate, starts off with conducting a study, write a paper accepted by a journal, and you can then use that paper to support a funding application. You then get some more money, and the process begins again. Goes round and round and round. So just to overview science, hopefully I've given you a very, very brief overview of the scientific method. And also told you about a tiny bit about peer review and the cycle of funding. So now I'd just like to take a quick look at what can happen when you misuse science. And one of the things I mentioned earlier is creationism. And creationism is a prime example of getting it the wrong way round. In case you can't read that, it says the scientific method on the left. Here are the facts, what conclusions can we draw from them? And the other way around is the creationist method, which is here is the conclusion, what facts can we find to support it? So that's creationism, just getting it completely the wrong way round. Now, if you're not familiar with creationism, it's very much an American phenomenon, but it is found all over the world. I think there's even a creationist museum in the UK. I think it's on the south coast somewhere, although it is just some guy's garage. So creation science, briefly summed up, is the belief that the universe was created by a supernatural creator. You know, you have to be fairly ambiguous there. Obviously, there are young Earth creationists who are often abbreviated to YECs, and they believe that the Bible is a literal text. And they also believe that the universe was created 6,000 years ago by the Christian God. And they have a rather, excuse me, they have a rather warped view of science, and they often completely bastardize the scientific method. And they say things like this over and over again. Evolution is still a theory and not a fact. It's never been proven. Now, every time I hear that, that is my reaction, ladies and gentlemen. You just hear it so many times. You just get sick of it. Now, there's an obvious rebuttal, which hopefully, if you don't know, you can already guess through what I've been mentioning earlier. Now, theories are never proven. Never in science do you go, that is 100% true, that is definitely right, when we're never going to change our minds about it. That never happens. Because the theories explain facts. That's what makes theories interesting. The theory of evolution, for those of you that aren't sure, the theory of evolution explains the diversity of life. It explains why we've got so many different plants and animals. Very importantly, it doesn't explain the origin of life, doesn't explain how life started. That's a different scientific discipline, which I'm not going to talk about today, called abiogenesis. And the creationists have their own view of the scientific method, which looks a bit like this. I got this from Eric Hovind's blog. If you're interested, just put in Eric Hovind blog. I was hoping for a bigger screen than this, but what this says is you start off with make observation, then invent hypothesis to explain observation. That's not too bad. Then you test the hypothesis, and if it passes many times, I don't know what it's passing here, but according to them, a hypothesis becomes a theory. Great, eh? And you then test that theory many times, and if that theory passes many times, that theory becomes a law. And of course, this is completely wrong. We don't have hypotheses becoming theories and theories becoming laws. And we do have fails, but it doesn't fail as much as this understanding does. Now, creationism is a great example of putting your conclusion before actually doing the research. And there's a very, very good example from recent times, which is the conclusion that MMR causes autism, put through by Andrew Wakefield. Now this is where misuse of the scientific method, for me, is very, very serious. There he is again. You can boo again if you want. So just to quickly go over the Wakefield case. In 1998, Andrew Wakefield published the Lancet paper, which somehow claimed a link between MMR and autism. If you follow it, the paper itself, you could never draw that conclusion from it, but for some reason, he thought it was appropriate to. That spurred a large amount of research into this link, and countless papers that followed it just found no link. These very large population studies, including the most famous one, which was conducted in Denmark, that looked at the medical records of 500,000 children, 400,000 vaccinated, 100,000 unvaccinated. And they found that the rate of autism was statistically the same in both groups. So just this huge scare over nothing, over the complete abuse of the scientific method. And of course, recently, Andrew Wakefield was found guilty of acting dishonestly and irresponsibly by the GMC, and the Lancet paper has been retracted, finally. So, to sum up, the scientific method applied properly brings great rewards. We've already seen what science can do. But rejection of it leads to ignorance, breeds stupidity, and at times it can be very, very dangerous. And I've got a personal belief that skeptics should be able to enforce and educate about the scientific method. I've got a blog where I... Thank you very much. I've got a blog which basically does what the MSS does. I've got a blog, really. Anyway, it's at tomfooleryblog.com. So, yeah, cheers. And that's the end of my talk. So, thanks for listening.